Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today we are covering Jacob's Ask Temporal on risk. Specifically, Jacob wants to know how does one acclimate themselves to taking risk, and we're going to get into that. We're going to cover both how to acclimate yourself to take risks, but first we're going to cover why it's important to take risks in life. If you want to maybe own a house someday, you want to be able to retire, not work until you drop, or you want to have a significant other in your future, you want to have friends that you can hang out with in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's important to take risks. Our main focus are going to be both financial and social risks, as that was the focus of Jacob's question. But I think this is going to be helpful for a lot more than just Jacob. I think there's people out there who could use this because we've gotten pretty risk averse as a society, and that can be to individual people's detriment. It doesn't work out well for them. So you're simply not going to have enough money to retire if you just work and just save money. You go save it in a bank, maybe put it in a high interest bank account. Such things don't really exist. Oh yay, half a percent, 0.6%, 1% if we're lucky. No, you're not going to have enough if you're just saving money. You're going to have to involve some level of risk through investing. And likewise, you're very likely to end up alone. And if you don't want to end up alone, that's a bad thing. If you just go, hey, I'm just going to wait and hope that the right person just falls into my life, they're probably not going to do so. And if you're doing that because you're afraid to approach people, you're afraid to put yourself in situations where you could be rejected, I get it. That can be scary to people, especially if they haven't done it a lot. And I get why that feels risky, especially in a post Me Too era. I get why that feels risky. But we're going to get into it. So we will start with money. Even if you work, let's say, a job that makes 60K for 30 years and you're able to save a third of that every year, you're going to be at 540K. And saving a third of it isn't necessarily real in a lot of the places where you might be making 60K. And some of you are going to look at 60K and say, hey, that's a pretty good average job. And some of you are going to look at that and say, hey, I make way more than that. And good, that's totally fine if you make more or less. That's a pretty average number for American incomes that have, sort of made it, went through college, that sort of thing, whatever. That's pretty average, so that's why I'm using that number. 540K. And that's 540K if you've just put that in the bank. Now, you get a little tiny percent through bank interest, but it definitely won't keep up with inflation if that's how you're doing it, at least not with how we've been doing things for the last 20 years with interest rates and things like that. So that's not really going to work for you. And 540, even if you had that today and were ready to retire, wouldn't really be an amount that you'd go, oh yeah, I'm comfortable retiring. Now that plus Social Security, plus perhaps moving to a cheaper place to live might work for you, but by the time we get to 30 years from now, 20 years from now, 15 years from now, however far away retirement is for you, that's definitely not going to be enough. And you can say, oh, wages will go up too. Wages never go up at rates that equalize inflation. They just never do. We can look at the last month's inflation reports. We can see things where it's like, yes, we have inflation. We can be looking at 7.8%, but wages are growing too. Yeah, wages are growing too. They did not grow at 6.8% there. And we see that constantly. That's always been the case. And even looking at the inflation metrics, as everyone knows, is suspect because we do gamification with those where we change out what's measured in the index to suspiciously have it not include housing, things like that. That's why everyone's suspicious of inflation numbers. But that's okay. Doesn't really matter. The point is 540K is not enough to retire. That might seem like a lot of money, especially to people who are early in their careers. I mean, it is a lot of money. It's a lot of money in the sense that that's plenty to, if you have that much invested, that's going to do a lot of work for you. If you have that much, you could certainly go, hey, let's buy a local business or two that you're going to turn into something. That's enough to go, hey, let's put deposits down on properties that we're going to turn into income seeking things. But as just cash not doing any work for you, that's not enough to live off of for potentially another 20, 25 years at the same level that people were likely spending at beforehand. So given that you're still going to hit with tax events on that and that sort of thing. So anyway, you look at that and that's not really going to work. Now, You have to invest those earnings in order to get moderately comfortable retirement. You're gonna have to. That's just reality. You can put that into stock markets. I wouldn't say, if you're incomfortable, I wouldn't recommend picking individual stocks. Index funding makes more sense. By the way, I am not giving financial advice. I am not your financial advisor. Obviously, I'm saying, hey, this is what I recommend. These are things that make sense, but I am not your financial advisor. We do not have some contract between us. Just getting that out there as a disclaimer. So, you can look at that and go, hey, makes sense. You're going to need to put that in something that can grow, that can outgrow inflation, but can also have your money doing work for you, because your salary is simply not going to be enough if you want to maintain the standard of living that you probably had while you were working. You're going to look at that and go, oh, okay, we've got a little bit here. You're going to need either investments from stock, might be some other form of investment. You could take money that you've saved up after 5 years of working and go, I'm going to start a business with that money. That's absolutely possible. And you could make greater money off of that because you as the owner then get to keep what comes in, the differences, etc. And you can make much more than you would in most salary jobs if it does well. You also have the potential to sell that business later to help fund having a retirement later, that sort of thing. So, those are good things. Obviously, there's great risk there. Your business can fail. You can put a lot of money into starting a business. Maybe you go, hey, I'm going to start a business as a locksmith, and you don't realize that there's already enough locksmiths around and they're not making a ton of money, and oops, your business is going to fail. So, definitely be aware that there's going to be risk in that. You can do similar things with real estate investing. You can do similar things with crypto investing. Whatever you want to talk about there, you're going to have to do some level of investment because you're just not going to make it to the level that you want. You can think of this as, hey, if we, let's just flip screens real quick here. If we look at it like this, I just pulled up an Overwatch thing because if you just do sort of the standard, well, I'm just going to work. This is the bar for the retirement level that you want. Likely. This is how high you're likely to get if you just save whatever. And if you take risks, you can potentially get to here, you can potentially get way up here. You could also potentially end up down here. That's the thing. So you've got to take calculated, somewhat intelligent risks. You do have to weigh these, but just doing this first thing isn't really going to get you there. So you want to be careful on that. Let's flip back only. So that's really how I would recommend people think about that, where it's really not going to be enough if you're just stacking money like that. And obviously, the example I used, most people are not able to put away fully a third there for that. Okay. So what we're looking at is the exception to you not being able to just save enough money just by saving would be high-end commission-based jobs, high-end sales commission-based jobs, that sort of thing. You can actually make stupid amounts of money even without owning anything, even without owning a business that you then want to be able to sell later or continues to print money for you after you retire. That's something you can do, but for those who are risk intolerant, that's probably not where they went in the first place, because your compensation is, of course, risk based. It is, how much can you go get? How many deals can you go close? How big are the value of the deals? So this isn't really for people who are in high-powered sales commission jobs, though I recommend they get out of them by getting into something more stable. If they're really good at it, absolutely keep doing it, but still put your money into something else. And you might be thinking, no, there's other jobs out there. There's jobs that make good money. You can make 100, 150K, 200K without being in a commission-based job. You could be the CTO. That's not a commission-based job. And you could be making good money at a tech company. And yeah, you could, but you're still going to have to take some risks to get there. You're going to have to play some level of politicking. And did you anchor your boat to the wrong ship, to the wrong other executives on your way up who then leave the company or don't, or that sort of thing? It's not actually some, oh, well, there's a fully safe route through there. And what you're also going to happen is, in order to get the recognition to move up, you're either going to have to win some games of politics or nepotism, or you're going to have to attach your name to some risky projects and then be successful. And if you're not successful, That's going to be a strike against you. And really, if you want to consistently move up, you're probably going to be changing jobs a lot if you really want to drive your salary up. And again, that's going to feel risky. You never really know what's in the next job there. Is the next job going to be a worse environment? Is the next job going to require way more hours of you? Are you going to be able to cut it at your next job the way you can cut it at your job? But we all are aware that one of the best ways to drive up your salary is to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. Like, that is something, as soon as you have a job, go shop for the next job, that sort of thing. But again, that's going to feel risky, but you get paid significantly more over time if that is what you're doing. So again, you are going to have to take some risks here. Again, inflation will absolutely destroy you if you just put your savings in cash. And while banks, landlords may recognize wage income as that most stable form of income, that's the sort of thing that they look at when they're going, hey, am I going to rent to you? Or hey, am I going to give a loan to you? That's the sort of income they most like. It's a lie. It's not the most stable. You have the least control over it. If you own a business, you have a fair amount of control over that business. You don't have control over the greater economy, but you actually have a fair amount of control over that business to be able to react to the greater economy, to perhaps lay people off, to perhaps downsize, to perhaps push heavier into marketing to bring in more business, whatever it's going to be. You have a greater level of control of that. When you're an employee working for someone and that's your only source of income, you don't have much control at all. If you get laid off, you get laid off. If you get promoted into some great position, sometimes that's kind of luck. And maybe you get promoted into a great position, but then the economy goes bad and you get bailed and you get laid off and you're kind of stuck. You didn't really have control over that. So don't fall for this belief that, oh, I haven't accepted risk into my life, I've absolutely minimized risk. Not taking risks is a risk here. And chat, I see you guys. I will catch up on chat at the end of this, but I've got a little bit that I want to go through here. So the other major category that Jacob and I think most people are going to care about, besides money, retirement, that sort of thing, is romance. Now, that won't apply to everyone, but that will apply to some people, to many people certainly. It's certainly a topic of interest for a lot of people, and I'm more going to look at this from a male perspective. If you guys have questions, I can certainly handle this from a female perspective, throw them up in chat, and I'll get to them at the end. But when it comes to romance, if you don't ask people out, the odds are not in favor of you finding someone. That is not how it works. You might think, oh, someone's just going to fall into your life eventually. If you just do the right thing and be a good person and be nice, someone will just fall into your life. Feminism lied to you. Women are never going to ask men out as frequently as men ask them out. So, and that's especially true for the ones you're interested in. They simply don't have to. They won't. That's reality. You're going to have to deal with it. And then the other thing that you run into is people become more set in their ways and less willing to compromise as they get older, as they're single for longer, and that again causes romantic relationships to become harder to form. It also gets harder in the post school. When people are in high school, when people are in college, they're constantly surrounded by people their age who have roughly similar levels of accomplishment. So there's some level of gating of, okay, well, you're at the same school or you've made it into the same level of university. And that does some level of, hey, it narrows the fields for both parties and makes them a little more focused, which is actually good for actually making decisions. It's harder to make decisions when you're overwhelmed by a million different options, infinite options. It's actually much easier when you feel like your options are, you have 20 options, you have 200 options, you have 3 options, much easier to make decisions in those cases. But also, students go do things together, have classes together, moan about their professors together, are pitched the same things for marketing. That's not really going to be true the same way in your work life. Work is no longer really a great place to meet people. Most workplaces heavily frown on it. I know that's how a huge number of your parents probably got together through work or school, but that's not really a great place to get together anymore. It's dangerous, especially for someone who doesn't like risk. It would be dangerous for your job. It would be dangerous for legal stuff. Like you really don't want to go there. But then we're also in an era where there's more streaming available, there's more video games available. It's much easier for both parties to just stay inside, to just stay inside in a post-college world, especially when they're tired after work, after working such long hours, and never really go out to places where they could meet people, except maybe the grocery store. And are you willing to cold approach someone in the grocery store? You're probably going to get rejected because you've got nothing in common. Now, or you don't know if you have nothing in common. You have no shared experience. You have no, maybe you're really great and you can chat up about, okay, make conversation about how slow the check line is going or how rude the previous customer was and go from there. But that's a skill that generally most people have to develop a little bit, and you're gonna mess up some as you're developing it, which is gonna feel bad. Rejection feels bad. That's how that works. So again, you don't have enough control. You might later in your life start going out more and doing more things, but there's other parties out there that if they're not coming out, again, it's still going to be harder. Now, there's things you can do if you've vastly leveled up yourself. You've become, hey, maybe you went and created a successful business. Maybe you've become quite wealthy. Maybe you're in much better shape than you were before. Maybe because you're just, money's just coming into you, you're getting to go on a lot of vacations and travel a bit, and that's causing you to be out. And yes, that can make it easier to meet people than it was when you were in school. But for the vast majority of people, that's not going to be the case. So again, you're going to have to take some level of risk if you want romance in your life, that risk of rejection as well as potentially other things. So avoiding risks as much as possible isn't less risky than taking some well-weighed risks. I'm not talking about being stupid. I'm not talking about, what's the newest cryptocurrency scam that's being perpetrated? Let's jump into it. Let's go, hey, let's throw as much money as possible and hope that it takes off and that we can get out before the rug gets pulled out from people. I'm not talking about that. Don't be stupid. But again, I do want to establish that you're probably not going to make even your moderate level goals if you just go, I'm just going to make the safest move of all times at all times. It's not going to work. You're not going to get to the level that you would consider comfortable. You're not going to find the partner that you want if that's what you're looking for. And you're also probably going to find that your social circle, your friend network deteriorates a little bit. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So remember, you can't work forever, or even if you think you can work forever, at some point people are going to go, you're too expensive, or hey, even if you're willing to accept as much as the new guy is willing to accept, which we don't believe that you're going to, so we're not even going to have the conversation to potentially hire you. You don't work as fast as the new guy. You aren't as fresh with modern technology as the new guy is, so we're just not going to hire you. You're not going to be able to work forever. It might be, you can be like, hey, that's ageism, but that's also reality. So you're not going to be able to work forever, so you're going to want to have that savings that's made enough money that you can actually retire on, preferably that's made enough money that you can go infinite on with something like the 4% rule. But currently, for most people in places that most people want to live, pre-pandemic, that probably would have been about $2 to $3 million that you'd have wanted saved up. It'll probably be higher post-inflation in just a couple of years here as we see how this settles out. But hey, that's what you're looking at. Again, you're gonna have to have taken some risks to get there, because you're not going to be able to go, oh, well, I'll just keep working when I'm 70. I'll just keep working right up until I die. You won't be able to find it, and then when you can't find that work, I don't want to say not finding work will immediately cause you to die. It's not quite that simple, but you'll start doing things that compromise your health more. You'll start living in worse places, eating worse food, that sort of thing. Anyway, don't need to get into it too much, and eventually, yeah, it's not going to be great. Your interest in your job will also burn you out. Will also burn out. Like, you might be thinking, oh, hey, I like my job. I like how this has gone for the last 5 years. This is good. I maybe work 10 hours a day, whatever, and then I go home and I get to do this. And, maybe it's play video games. Maybe it's watch streaming. Maybe it's working out. Maybe it's whatever. And then maybe it's, cooking fancy meals. It can be anything. And then repeat, I do the next thing the next day. And hey, we do that all week and it's great. And I like the way that my life is currently working. And that's cool and that might be fine, but you're not going to enjoy doing that same job for 30 or 40 years. You're not. The job's also very unlikely to exist in the same way for 30 to 40 years. So again, you're going to have to potentially look around, and it's much better to look around and find that new job yourself than it is to go, okay, we're giving you the boot because we don't need this anymore. We've solved this with technology, or your company's gone out of business, whatever the case may be. Like that is much better. But also, again, you if you're able to make all of your equations work for income versus how much you spend when you have the job, when you're less excited about the job another 3 years from now, it's going to be harder to keep grinding those 10-hour days when, oh, wait, you're not actually getting ahead. You're just saving a little bit of money. If your money's not working for you, you're not going to be getting where you want to fast enough to go, hey, I kind of want to be done working at some point. Or at the very least, I want to be able to switch careers, and switching careers is probably going to give me a pay cut, that sort of thing. Um, I do want to re-hit here that a how do I want to put this? You probably don't like the risk of rejection, but that potential significant other is very unlikely to just fall into your life, especially post school, post college, whatever the case is there. That is unlikely to happen unless you have built yourself to be very successful. That applies to mostly men and women. The things that they need to be successful at, that they value in each other, does differ a little bit, but like I do want to highlight that, just being like, oh no, I'm fine with this. We're perfectly fine. This is good. And eventually, I don't want to approach. That's too scary. I don't like rejection. Or what if they accuse me of something? Or what if they think it's rude? I mean, who cares if they think it's rude? You've never met them before. You'll probably never meet them again. Whatever. Don't be incredibly rude about it, but a little forward, a little more forward than you feel comfortable with is gonna be okay. And if they think you're lame or rude or whatever, they probably thought the same thing about the cashier who was short with them. I mean, so people are. I do want to also remind you that getting together with an SO, if you just significant other, if you think they're just going to fall into your life, is a significant risk. Like when you get together with someone, if you, depending on where you live, in terms of what country, you can find that just cohabitating, what state, cohabitating together, living together can be okay. Now they're going to effectively see you as married, and now you're financially entangled. You could just get financially entangled because you decide to be. You also hit the, hey, what's going to happen in terms of, obviously, you got together with someone, potentially there's a kid, that sort of thing. All of these things are risks that, you are going, hey, if this wasn't the right person and they leave you 3 years later, 7 years later, whatever, you're going to be torn apart there. And again, that is risk. Like, I do want to be clear, there is risk. It's not just like, oh, well, dating is scary or approaching people is scary, so I won't do that. And eventually the right person will fall into my life. Well, again, they probably won't, and it's going to be, you're still in a risk even if you do get together with them or make it permanent with something like marriage. No, that potentially just means now you're legally entangled. That doesn't stop people from walking away. We do not enforce lifelong monogamy. Like that is not a thing that we enforce. And no, you're taking risks when you do any of this stuff related to that. So it's not like you can avoid this risk unless you just decide that, hey, you don't want to have a significant other. And that's a completely valid approach. That is a thing that you can do if that is what you want in your life, but that shouldn't be coming from a place of fear. That should be coming from a place of you don't want that. And that's fine if that's where you are, but again, that you don't really want that coming from a place of fear of risk causing you don't, and even if that is coming from a place of fear of risk, you want that at least to be a situation where you've analyzed it and you're looking at it with a clear head and decided that the risk isn't worth the reward because the reward just isn't very important to you, or the risk is way, way, way too high, but you're not creating a blown up, overly significant risk over fear of rejection. That shouldn't be the risk that's scaring you there. And then finally, because it's related, I want to talk about, you might be happy with your social circle right now, but as your friends move away for jobs, as your friends move, go together with significant others, have children, they're going to have less time for you, and your group of 4 friends, your group of 7 friends, your group of whatever is mostly going to deteriorate. And if you haven't put in the work to, as an adult, make more adult friends, at some point you're going to discover, hey, I want to go, I want to go on a road trip with some buddies to Tahoe, or hey, let's go motorcycling over here, or hey, let's get together and let's go hike this mountain over here. That would be really cool. You're not going to have friends to do it with because they're not going to have time for you. And that's just a thing that drifts that happens over time. So you've got to constantly sort of be working on your deck. And that does mean doing the sort of risky, awkward thing of hanging out with someone and then sort of going, hey, if I ask them if they want to go get drinks, or if I ask them if they want to go do this thing together, and here I'm talking about friends, I'm not talking about significant others, are they going to think that's weird and whatever because we're adults, we don't go on play dates? No, you do have to find stuff to do together if you still want to have a circle of friends to go do things with as they get older. Your current batch of friends, some of them may stick around, but less than you think. Most of them are going to have less and less time to do friend stuff as time goes on. This goes back to that we get more set in our ways and it's harder to find relationships as we get older because we're less compromising. We very much likewise run into a similar issue when it comes to being friends. It's much easier to make lifelong friends when you're younger, so you actually have to work at it harder as you get older here. So I really want to reframe your and everyone's view on this as not taking reasonable risks is risking your future. You've only got so much time on the planet, so much time that you can work, so much time that you can wait to find a relationship, so much time for anything that you could be doing, and you're really risking your future happiness by going, well, I don't want to take risks because they're scary, because they might feel bad, they might not go poor, they might go poorly. And yeah, they might. If you take those risks, things might go poorly. I'm not going to lie to you. They might. You can take risks and lose. You can take risks and bad luck can defeat you. You can go, I'm taking a reasonable risk. This is a pretty good reason, this is like a pretty solid chance of getting me a pretty good payout. I'm buying a business or I'm investing in myself to create a business and I have the expertise in this and this should be good. And then external factors could destroy you and you could lose the effectively 4 years, 7 years, whatever of savings that you put into that business. And that absolutely sucks. But again, you're not going to make it in most situations if you don't. You're not going to make it to the level that you want, that you would consider acceptable for your life. And here's the thing. When you're younger, you've got a little more time to go, I can remake that money. It might not take 4 years this time. It might take 2 years or 3 years because I demand a higher salary than I used to before. Or I'm smarter and I can make better decisions and I can do this. Or it might take longer because the squeeze has happened more and, employees are making less relative to inflation. But you do have a little more time the earlier you start taking risks. That said, the later you take risks, the more expert you get, but you only get more expert if you've been building meaningful skills along that way. So now I want to get into the real topic that was Jacob's question, which is how do you acclimate yourself to taking these risks? I think Jacob probably understands that you have to. I hope you all agree and understand that you have to. If you feel that I'm terribly wrong, let me know in the chat or in comments and be like, no, you can definitely do it with almost no risk, whatever. I want to hear about it. I want to fight you over that. No, that's fine. So what you're looking for is financially, I'll start. You want to take baby steps. If you're on the sidelines because you were just stacking cash in a bank account for, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, it's going to be scary to suddenly put all of your money into the stock market. That would be a reasonable baby step. That's too scary to just put that all into the market because, hey, we're in financially uncertain times. What if it crashes? That would be terrible. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build some system to slow deploy your money. Not because it's better. Financially speaking, it generally would be better to actually just throw, if you have a huge lump sum of money, to actually just put that into, invest that immediately, be it into the stock market, be it into real estate. Financially speaking, over time, the stock market and the real estate market have both gone up in such a way that you would actually just want to put that in. But that's too mentally taxing. That's too scary. The way you acclimate yourself to this is you go, hey, you set something for yourself of every month you have to put X dollars in. And X dollars should be more than you add to your savings every month. So if you're adding $2,000 a month after expenses to your savings to your bank account every month, you should be putting $3,000, $3,500, $4,000 per month into the market. And you should be working your way in like that. Again, it depends how much money you have saved, that sort of thing. And you can work up the amount that you're putting in until you get to, as you get more comfortable with it. But you want to do that. And that way, if there is some crash, some psychological thing, something that happens, it won't scare you out of being like, oh my goodness, I lost everything before I'd made any money on it. This is terrible. I'm never doing this again. And then cause you to stay out of the markets for the rest of your life, which again is very detrimental to you, as I have already explained. So I would recommend set an amount, put in more than you're getting to add to your savings, to your checking account, to whatever per month, and make sure that it's meaningfully more. It shouldn't be like, hey, you have 300,000 just sitting in a bank and you're putting 4,000 in per month when you're adding 2,000, for example. You should be putting more than that in per month, but that's fine. You'll get to it. Um, then we could get into if you wanted to invest in other things, like, hey, real estate is scary. Real estate is such a big investment. It's hard to invest in real estate in small amounts. You can invest in REITs. That's a thing, but that's not really going to feel like investing in real estate. So what you're probably going to need to do is you're going to need to either go, hey, you have enough money that you can get something smaller and less nice than you wanted as an investment as your piece that's near you, or you can invest remotely. If you live in New York, you can invest in Ohio, for example. I don't love that because you don't get all of the real estate experience for building up how to do some of the stuff yourself. You're not on the ground getting to manage your people, and you don't get some of the efficiency gains that you'd get from being there and going, okay, now I know the different handymans. I know what level of work they do. I can pick the right one. I know how to talk to the plumbers to not get ripped off on deals, things like that. You can actually look around the neighborhood, things like that. But with modern technology, with telecommuting, with asking your contractors to show you videos of what they're looking at, that sort of thing, it is doable now, and you're going to be able to invest in other areas without being like, I spent 100%. No, I only spent 80% of what I've got on this investment, and I've got a little bit in reserve for when costs are inevitably higher than I expected, when it takes me 3 months to fill a vacancy instead of 1 month to fill a vacancy, when it turns out the roof needs to be replaced 3 years earlier than I thought it was going to have to be, that sort of thing. You do want some money on the side to make sure big investments like real estate or businesses you can handle. Oops, I didn't realize I was going to have these expenses. So don't go all in on those things, but ultimately those, yes, are going to be relatively big purchases that are going to take most of what you have. You are not going to be able to get to a point where you go, or you shouldn't try to get to a point where you can go, hey, I can buy this and then I've still got 50% of my worth that is liquid cash that I can use to fix things, that I can use to do this, unless you'd originally planned to do it to spend, say, another 20% of it, 30% of it to make upgrades, say, renovations to a house. Like, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to be sitting out and missing out on too much upside if you're waiting that far, especially on your first large purchase of that sort. Okay, there we go. So then I'd probably move on to romance here, but I actually think it helps to move on to friends first. So, like, that's how you do it with finance. Again, you buy it in little ways. You buy it in such a way if you have to buy big things where you go, I'm intentionally going to buy it while having 20% on the side, something like that. I'm potentially going to invest in a cheaper area, that sort of thing, and operate remotely. There's disadvantages to that, don't get me wrong, but that's how you can be like, okay, this is risk that it's going to be beyond your comfort level. It's going to be more than you're comfortable with in any of those situations, but it's not drastically pushing your limits. It's going to somewhat push your limits, and it's supposed to. It's going to go beyond what you're comfortable with, but that is how you acclimate. You go do more of what you go further than you think you can. You go a little bit further than feels comfortable, but you still do it. And again, when it comes to purchasing things like real estate, it's going to be quite a bit further than you're comfortable, but that's sort of how you do it. And that, as you see success, and as long as the market doesn't immediately crash, you're going to grow more and more comfortable, okay with it, by having effectively done exposure therapy to it there. Okay. So moving on to friends, you want to go do activities that you're going to enjoy anyways. So don't go, hey, I hate dance, but I'm going to go spend time at dance class because I want to meet people or make friends or whatever. No, if you hate dance, don't don't go do it. Or, oh, I'm going to go travel a lot and I'm going to, I'm going to go to Hawaii, except I hate travel. Don't do those things. If you don't like those things, don't do those things. But do find things that you enjoy doing that get you out of the house and have a real potential to meet other people. We already talked about how you've got streaming in the world, you've got video games in the world, you've got so much to do indoors right now, and you also have people with less disposable income to spend on outdoor entertainment that is more expensive in a lot of ways. So you want to make sure that if you go out to have fun, you go do something you enjoy. Now, you might be in a situation where you go, hey, I would love to, my favorite way to spend tonight would be to sit in and read a book. But you know what? My second favorite thing to do right now would be to go take martial arts classes. Okay, you're going to go take martial arts classes. I'll catch up on that super chat there. Adam in Charge with a super chat for 199 says, "Don't take any risks, never ever, just hide away." Yeah, we're going to disagree with that, Adam. So again, you might move around your priority list a bit, where what you most want to do is stay home, have a quiet night, and read. But you wouldn't mind going to martial arts class either, and you're going to go to martial arts class, and hey, that's fun. That's something that you enjoy. You go do it. Or again, it could be dance class. It could be board game group, it could be a recreational sport, soccer, football, whatever you want it to be there, but something that's getting you out of the house more. That's going to help build out your social circle and gives you the chance to interact with people. And then you also want to push your boundaries of what you're willing to go do. Like you might go, oh, hey, it's a party. I'm not a party person. Or, oh, hey, it's a social event. It's this, it's that. That's not really my scene. I don't want to go do that. Maybe it's a music concert. That's not your scene. That's fine. Do it anyway. Like, if you don't think that you're going to hate it, go alone. You can totally go alone. Or maybe you're like, I don't want to go to a movie alone. That's weird. Whatever. I don't want to go to do this. Like, no, just go do it. You can literally just go out and go do those things. And if you're having a bad time, you can leave. And mostly you've just cost yourself a little bit of time. You've cost yourself a single evening. That's fine. You are not in any way anchored to go to these things, and give yourself permission to go do things alone, but also to just leave if you don't enjoy them. And then you'll be more willing to go do these things. And if you go do these things alone, yes, you can meet people like that. And you can meet people that you then go hang out with. And again, I would recommend you look for things that involve other people, though. I would recommend you look for rec leagues, you look for, meetups, clubs, things like that. These do exist for adults, absolutely. And find something that you're comfortable doing. Maybe that's, hey, you want to go play soccer. Maybe that's you want to go find a board game group. And you don't have to stick in that forever, I'd be clear. You can go find that group that you play soccer with, find that board game group, and you can connect with a couple people. And then you can pull them out of that group. In fact, I want you to pull them out of that group and specifically go do other things with them. Maybe you form your own mini board game group that you do with a couple of your other friends, and you mix them into your friend circle like that. Or maybe you go, oh, hey, as you're doing that, you find out, as you're doing your rec league, doing your soccer, you find out that you've got a couple other people that have hiked some really cool places, and you go, hey, I've got a cool place. You guys want to go hike this place this weekend? And you intentionally pull them out and start doing stuff with them outside of that organized group. And again, that's how you make sure that you have friends as you get older. It's also how you make sure you're out of the house doing stuff and in places where you can meet people, which meeting people can also mean meeting people that are potentially significant others in the future. And it can also mean meeting people who can potentially connect you to other people that you may be interested in dating. Again, that's how that works. So now we move into romance, and I covered this last because I really think it is best to build up some of the other areas of your life in terms of your finances, your financial future, in terms of making sure that you're building a significantly meaningful friend network that you're comfortable with that can lead to romantic things. You should also work out, physically take care of yourself. Please do. It matters for it matters for everyone a lot more than people think. But let's get into it. So, romance is tricky because high levels of confidence and making moves is attractive to most women. It is. It's not going to be attractive to every single woman, but as an average, as a population, that is going to be attractive to most women, but it can be dangerous as well. We're in a post Me Too era. We're in a place where, we have lots of workplaces covering their butts saying, oh no, absolutely nothing even remotely innuendo or flirty at the company, or no dating your coworkers ever. That's terrifying. We don't want a bit, we don't want anything like that happening. Like it is does take some level of risk there. And then you've got the risk of, hey, if you get rejected a lot, that is very hard to maintain one's confidence through, and that will make you less attractive. So, like, that's also not good. But there's ways you can handle this. So, first off, you have to decide if the risk reward ratio makes sense. You should pick places where the risk reward ratio is better. So, that would be not the workplace. I would even personally avoid universities for that sort of thing with how Title IX rules have gotten, but that's up to you. And then you're also immediately going to want to get off the dating apps. The dating apps are just terrible. The dating apps across the board are going to just be terrible for your confidence. I can almost guarantee it. The number of users in terms of men to women there just aren't going to be good for a guy's confidence. It's not something that they want to do. You're going to start feeling like something is wrong with you. Do not go down that route. Get off that route if you're in it. That's just like a weight that you've tied to your ankles for your confidence. And again, that confidence is attractive. So like, we don't actually want you to just get in there by doing a lot of asking. No, that's actually not quite the solution that we want here. So again, at the very least, getting your finances and social circles increased is going to increase your ability to attract a partner. Physical fitness as well. Get off those dating apps. And then clean rejection beats uncertainty any day. So like, actually make the move. When you're like, hey, I'm interested in someone, don't go, oh, let me set up the perfect thing, or oh, let me play this slow game. Make the move and make it clear that you are making the move and that you are asking someone out. Do not do the, well, I'll do this and it's less risky if it's, if I play the slow game, because then maybe like we can be friends and it can grow and it'll fall into my life. And no, none of that nonsense. Do not waste your time with that. The opportunity cost for that is simply too high. If you are interested in someone, you make it clear, and you make it clear early, that you are asking them out romantically, that you are making a move on them, whatever. That clean rejection means you will save yourself time, agony, heartache. You will save yourself from potentially not seeing someone else because maybe you think you're seeing this person, but they don't see it that way, or they're sort of enjoying the attention of seeing it that way, but they also don't feel tied down and feel like they can go do something like that. Like, do not torture yourself like that. You 100% want to go for that. You're also less likely to get into trouble if you're a little more direct, a little more forward in what you're trying to do, especially early in knowing someone, because then you don't have this sunk cost thing that causes you to be like, oh, but I don't want to ruin this great friendship that we had, or, oh, but I've already invested, months, weeks, whatever into chasing her, and therefore it's going to be a situation where I got to drive this just carefully. No, none of that. It's get cleanly go for it, and if you get the clean rejection, it's really not that big a deal. Most women are actually going to let you down pretty easily, though you do have to properly be able to read the signs and not push through no's when you shouldn't. There's times where you could argue pushing through a no is correct, but I'm not going to get into that. That's way too dangerous of territory, and I'm not going to advise you on that. Okay, so we see that. Okay, the real thing here is your way to get through there. Get off the dating apps. Make sure the rest of your life is in order. Make sure that you're doing social circles things. Be direct, be forward, make your moves early, and you do want to escalate. You don't want things to get boring to let them be like, well, what are we doing? That sort of thing. And it is going to be your job to escalate. The reality of how male-female dynamics work means that it is mostly going to be your job to escalate. That is leftover stuff that we potentially have from Victorian age type things and the like. And again, feminism may have lied to you and told you that all these barriers are broken down. They're not. There's still going to be a desire of the pursued gender to be like, oh, well, it just happened. And hey, that gives them deniability. Totally understand it. That's fine. Whatever. You just have to work around that reality. So, final reminder here, and then I will catch up on chat. The world is full of risk. Even when you just drive down the street every day, you're just trusting that some yellow piece of paint on the street is going to cause another car to not come right at you and hit a head-on collision. You are trusting when you walk out of your house and lock your doors that no one is just going to put their foot through your window, which literally any adult male can do. Any adult male can put their foot through your window quite easily, walk in, and take your stuff. But you're choosing to go, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to leave to go to work. I'm going to leave to go to the grocery store. I'm going to leave to go do this other thing. You're accepting that risk in your life. You might not even realize that these are risks that you've accepted in your life because you've been doing them forever, but they are risks. And you pretty much need to do these same things when it comes to social rejection, romantic rejection, investing. Yeah, investing carries risk of loss. It absolutely does. You're already living with risk. Everyone is already living with risk. You just accept it because the world is risky and the world isn't fair, and there is no clean, perfect path through the world of if I do this, I will be successful. Maybe not like incredibly successful, but like successful to a degree that I am okay with 100% of the time. That path does not exist. You do not control when you get laid off. You do not control what the greater market does. You do not control when fate happens to drop some opportunity into your life romantically. You do not control enough of these things. You can game the deck a little bit, but you can't fully put it under your control, and that means you have to take risks to make things work. Yeah. That's really what I wanted to cover here. Again, you're probably going to have to take risks to get the life that you want, and I'm not talking about that billionaire own private islands lifestyle. I am talking about a hey, you have a significant other if you want it, maybe you own property and you're able to retire in your 60s, 70s, that sort of thing, and potentially live another 15, 20 years and not have it be like, oh, I'm scraping by. And remember, Social Security is not going to be there for you if you're not already nearing retirement. Like it might be there, but instead of being, hey, it could make up a third of your income, it's going to, or a third of what you need in retirement, it's going to be like 2%, 5%, not meaningful. Okay, so now I'm going to catch up on chat. I know I went a bit long there with covering that topic. How long have we gone? We have gone 45 minutes, not bad. So let's do a catch up on chat here because I probably said some controversial things that probably got some attention there. I'm lying. Science protects you and you don't take risks. You're wrong, Adam. I know you take risks. I know how you and your family turns profit, and you definitely take risks. Adam says girls don't know what they want, ignore them. People in general don't know what they want. It's like Overwatch, there's a level of risk for each play. You just got to find what is worth it. You do. But the consequences in real life feel more painful than the consequences in Overwatch because consequences in real life can be, hey, you invested 10 years of savings into something and you lost it all. Well, that's 10 years of your life gone as opposed to 20 minutes of a game gone. Or, you did something that got you in legal trouble. Oh, okay, well, that's a bigger consequence in terms of that makes it harder to get employment in the future, harder to pass background checks, all those sorts of things. Congex says, growing up with a single feminist mom, she taught me some awful stuff. Girls want money first, cool guys second, nice guys third. That's just what I found out eventually. Shrug. Okay, that would be coming from Congex there. Okay, let's scroll back up a little bit here to the beginning maybe. You need this video? Glad you need this. Well, maybe not glad you need this video, Magdalena, but glad you've got it here. What do I mean by we're too risk averse as a society? As a society, I mean, do I even want to go there? As a society, which is really a bunch of individuals, too many of us individually, which makes up our society in this current generation, really want it to be stable, really want complete safety, really want to be able to go, hey, I do this and this happens. And that's not world, that's not nature. Earthquake happens, hurricanes happen, forest fires happen. There is no, oh, it's this and it's always like this and it's safe. You get into this a little bit when you can get into things that are a little too political, but things where, everyone is responsible for their own. Everyone is in some way responsible for their own level of, okay, can you can you feed yourself for the day, and can you find shelter for the day? And you're sort of responsible for that regardless of what happens, regardless of is there a hurricane, regardless of is there a break in, that sort of thing. Like that sort of things that you have to do. Now, it's totally fine to accomplish those things by going, okay, well, we pay for a police force, we offer something that does nothing to offer me does nothing to, like, I can't build a house, but I can trade my services for things that build me a house. Like those are fine, those are things. But in general, we're risk averse as a society. We don't take many risks, and it has slowed down innovation as well, at a society level. Anyway, doesn't matter. The cure to financial risk is proper research. I mean, you can't fully cure it. There's always going to be risk. If it's a sure thing, everyone's doing it, and now there's no money to be made anymore. Really love your Overwatch videos. Pleasantly surprised you're doing content out of Overwatch. Keep it up. Happy to do so, Jargo. Bond rates are horrid right now. They absolutely are. Honestly, investing without having a proper 3 to 6 month emergency fund in place is kind of dumb. Having an emergency fund also helps remove a good bit of risk. Having an emergency fund does help remove a good bit of risk. A 6 month emergency fund is pretty long. A 6 month emergency fund is pretty darn long, I would say, if you've got nothing in the markets. You might eventually end up with a 6 month emergency fund if you've got lots available to you, but that is a long time. And what's necessary for an emergency fund definitions can move around. Obviously, you could look at the Ramsey approach, and what does he recommend? Like $1,000 emergency fund before starting to pay off debt, because he's really big in the like how to get rid of debt area. And okay, that's not enough for some parts of the world. I mean, you could start paying off debt at that point, but you wouldn't necessarily start investing with that. But like, I would certainly err closer to the 3 months. It's very conservative to say 6 months, because again, are you worried that things are going to like hard crash, like become worth zero? Well, then your emergency fund's worth nothing, and then your emergency fund is also worth nothing. But yeah, 3 to 6 months I suppose is fine. Yeah, this will stay up to Nano Split. Mercedes says, romance. If the E-Boys like don't ask me E out, how long should I wait until I look for a new one? I mean, if they don't ask you out, don't let them tie you down without actually asking you out, girl. You know the drill. If they're not making a move and they're not making it clear that they're making a move, you go find someone who will. Magdalena says, I want to date other women, but I'm afraid of one, dating apps full of unicorn hunters, two, another relationship, three, homophobia. Um, date other women, dating apps full of unicorn hunters, another relationship. Yeah, I still wouldn't go to dating apps. I still probably wouldn't recommend dating apps for you. But I'd also say, like, why do you need to be afraid of unicorn hunters? Like, you might think they're gross, but you just sort of go, no, next, right? Like, again, you might see something you don't like. You might get opening lines that you don't like, that sort of thing. You might get pictures that you don't like, but you'll survive those things. If you want to go, hey, you want to go figure out what that's about, you want to go date other women, great, have at it, go for it. But what you're going to run into is, like everything, there's risks in everything, and the risks there on the dating apps really aren't very much for you. I still would say probably go try to do it in the physical world, but you're going to have to go, if you want to do it in the physical world, use the same approaches that I mentioned. They're going to work just fine for you as well. Are you in a situation where population wise there are going to be less women interested in other women than there are women interested in men and men interested in women? Yes, and that does make it harder, but that's still the best approach to it, I would say. Mm-hmm. Keep your options open. There are a million news V boys to pocket, but I like that one. Right, but what you run into is how did things start? If you let him start things casually, why is he going to move things from casually to not casually? And if he does so, if he doesn't do so quickly, like okay, then you're kind of in a situation of now you've stuck yourself in the support zone, as opposed to getting what you actually want. So if they didn't lock it down, you can kind of go, okay, well, you lock it down or you don't, and that's why you guys want to be clear. You really do want to be clear in what you want. I'm serious. That advice differs a little differently for women than it does for men because women do get a little bit more of a hey, they recognize that they can scare guys off by saying what they want. Men can scare women off by saying what they want too sometimes. Don't get me wrong, I am talking about different wants here sometimes, but ultimately being clear on what you want, it, the opportunity cost that you save is so much on both sides that just be clear on what you want. Seriously, very early. Doesn't have to be like first thing that you say to them, but very early you should be clear on what you want. Cyrus Happy loves financial advisor Temporal. Thank you. Glad you like that, Cyrus Happy. Burnout is so real. Yep. Just walked from a rather high paying job due to poor work life balance culture and burnout. Went back later and they were like, you look so good and rested. No kidding. Mm-hmm. Can a female ask a male out, or would it still be, or would it be too weird? They can. A female can ask a male out. It's absolutely something that can be done. The problem that you're generally going to run into there is totally fine for a woman to ask a man out. What you're going to run into though is again, there's going to be fear of rejection. You're potentially going to get rejected. It's totally fine. Sometimes you will weird out some of the guys that you might be asking out, but usually if you're weirding out someone that you're asking out, I got to be honest, you're probably how do I want to say that? You are probably asking someone out who would never have considered dating you, who would have considered themselves so far above your league, that sort of thing, if they're being weirded out by it. Most people are going to be like, oh, yeah, that's great. And most guys are going to absolutely love having a woman ask them out. So yeah, of course, there's still some chance of rejection. There's always a chance of rejection. It's totally fine for you or any other woman to ask a guy out, Mercedes. Totally fine. But the reality of the situation is the amount of women asking men out is significantly lower than the amount of men asking women out, and it's because it really, it's a supply and demand thing of women get approached more so they don't feel the need to approach. They can just go, okay, wait a bit more time and we'll get approached again if they're putting themselves in situations where they're approachable and they're taking care of themselves. And that again can mean a little bit different things for a woman than it does for a man, but that's reality. Got to learn assets versus liabilities. Yep, guys do love being asked out. Okay. Honestly, best relationships I've had were found when when doing a hobby or club, similar interest kind of stuff. Right, and that's good for a couple things. A, you have a shared interest. Don't lean too heavily on the shared interest. Make sure you continue to push it from there out to other interests or out to more standard dating things. But yes, that can help to give you something to fall back on. It's also good because it's expanding your social network, your circle. It's, having you out of your house where you can actually meet people, which you will not get while you are, say, I don't know, playing Overwatch or watching Netflix or whatever the case may be. Wasn't it Star Trek that had the quote, you can do everything right and still lose? Sure. Research and diversification are the antidote of risk. Seriously, if you know what things mean, like APY and dividends, etc., then you're less fearful of it. Yeah, research definitely helps. The problem is some people can be doing research for years before they feel safe, and that's a lot of time missed out on. And I would like people, and especially my viewers, to be getting, the benefits of that earlier. But yes, research does absolutely help, as well as just understanding that, hey, you really can't just hide from this stuff. You really can't just hide, and you can't make it any other way by and large. Temporal, this sounds like you're insulting me for ranting about not wanting to socialize with my friends. No, you can still rant about your friends. That's fine. Go to the parties to keep the dog company? Okay, okay. Temporal suggesting people go to movies alone. Very sad. Okay, okay. He made this video for you, Adam. Yes, I made this video because Adam is going to movies alone so much. No, I'm kidding. Uh, Going to movies alone is pretty great. Uh huh. You don't like socializing with your friends and doing the same stuff you've been doing for 10 years? Well, that's fine. You might need more friends. You might need new friends, or you might need friends who want to do different things. You don't have to socialize with your friends in the same way that you socialized with them in, say, high school or whatever. You can go, maybe you got together and played video games. Maybe you got together and just hung out. Maybe you got together and did other things, and now you're going to find new friends that you do different things with, where it's like, okay, well, this is going to be your hiking buddy. This is going to be your watching football buddy, whatever the case may be there. Okay, you don't have to go to concerts to dance split. I gave examples, and I intentionally gave examples that would fit different people. Like, to some people, reading or a board game club is going to be an absolute snore. To other people, rec leagues and things like that are going to be like, what? No, that's way too. Or concerts are going to be way too. No. Okay. First finances, then love. So true. Wish I was taught that earlier. I hear ya. Temporal saying well, fat, and ugly. I mean, America is very overweight. America is very overweight. Kongek says no dude cares about the girl's financial situation, but the reverse is certainly a thing. It's not no dude cares about it, and also guys care about it less. I'm not gonna say that you're wrong there, Kongek. Guys do certainly care about it significantly less. And again, we're talking as populations here. We're not talking about individuals. Mm-hmm. Temporal is literally bald and wears a scarf all day. I'm still not sure how this bald thing works here. Slash canceled. Use dating apps only if you're at least an 8 out of 10 male. No. The 8 out of 10 isn't good enough, Mercedes, for them to be a good use of a guy's time. We know how this works. The data is pretty out there if you want to go. Well, the original data isn't out there because places like OkCupid published it and then went, wait, this is terrible for our retention when we share how abysmal the online dating scene is. We better get rid of those things that publish that. But OkCupid have a famous one. Numerous Tinder studies have been done. Match studies have been done. You're going to want to be 8 out of 10 isn't really going to be the number that you're going to want to not be wasting your time. That would be okay in the general population, but you're going to really want to be in that 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 territory. Danana Split says, I've met a ton of people off of Tinder, but a friend of mine had the exact reaction Temporal is talking about. Mm-hmm. Magdalena says, men start to have problems if women earns more. Oh, this will be a fun discussion. Oh, really? Danana Split says Tinder's been really helpful at developing your romantic communications with people. Okay, oddly enough. I mean, a little bit different for you as a woman because, again, you've got two different things. I believe you're a woman, at least there, Danana Split. You've got different things in terms of percentage of users that are online and how hungry they are. For you get to go, hey, there's some unpleasant interactions for you on Tinder, perhaps from people, and there's also going to be a lot of people that you aren't interested potentially messaging you. But Tinder has gotten very, very skewed, and what you're going to find is, yeah, you're going to have you might have a lot of options, and you don't like a lot of your options, don't get me wrong, but you are going to have some options in there. So if you keep your standards realistic, it can work pretty well for women. I still don't really recommend it. I still think going out is better, but yes, it is a better option for women than men. Learning how to let people know what you want, etc. There you go. Adam says, let me explain something to you guys. Just ignore women. Okay. Mercedes says thoughts on the friend zone. It's a waste of time if you don't get put in it. don't get put in it is the right answer. And the best way to not get put in it is to be clear with what you want and to make moves early on people that you think you're interested in. I'm serious. And to be clear on what your moves are. Not, oh, making a move, but I'm doing it in such a way where it could look like I'm not asking you out, and maybe you think that. You want it to be clear where if someone puts you in the friend zone, they had to like forcefully, actively try to misinterpret what you did, and then you just don't waste your time with it. Literally don't waste your time with it and just go, okay, well, I just don't need to interact with you ever again. It is not worth your time. And that would apply mostly to both genders. Okay, I suppose I'm saying that there's two genders there. That would apply mostly to men and women. Okay. Oh, chat bounced. Give me a second. Mm-hmm. Nothing feels worse than the consequences of a lost match in Overwatch. There we go. Kogek says someday I'll find a girl who loves my Overwatch skills. I think there's apps for that, but you shouldn't use them because those are also dating apps. uh, Socialization, especially in the Western world, is especially bad for teaching men unless they perform properly in the systems in place. They're much worse off. Um, Socialization doesn't teach men pretty terribly well currently, and we could get into why that is. That's kind of a big topic, and we get into a lot of we've done a lot of single parent households with a court system that has hugely favored women. We've done a lot of women in teaching, not very many men in teaching, and that again doesn't give boys terribly good role models. We've also moved education specifically in the K-12 range, but we've moved education. We've chased very hard after we want to make sure women keep up with or girls keep up with boys in education, and we went and changed how we delivered education to make it less boy friendly, to make it a model that actually works better for girls to help girls catch up. But then as girls have passed boys, which they have, if you look at college rates, if you look at grades, if you look at numerous studies, you'll find that if you replace a boy's name with a girl's name in many situations across the U.S., they will get a higher grade in K-12. We've seen a lot of this stuff at this point. Girls caught up and passed boys in education, and that's fine. Girls catching up was, like, okay, that's fine, that makes sense, that's the thing that we want to do. But we didn't then take our foot off the pedal for doing that, and it has we've had a lot of things here where, again, we rebuilt our education system in some ways, not completely. Our education system is vastly due for an overhaul here in terms of, no, we want to put less focus on effectively building factory workers, which is what our education system does currently, rather than building innovators, rather than building people who know how to start their own businesses, rather than building people who actually know how to do their own taxes, that sort of thing. But yeah, we don't do well in terms of teaching boys what they need, or how to grow up or how to act or that sort of thing. And some of that is lack of male role models, as well as a lot of the vision of how they should behave being shaped by places that are heavily not full of men having very little say or very little presence in the places where those decisions like rules at a school are made. No, Congex, not in a significant degree. I mean, there's going to be some of it, but it's the internet. There's always going to be some of it. Just like there's trolls in your Overwatch game who will reach for the lowest hanging fruit. They'll go, okay, that person sounds a little effeminate, so let's go after that. Or that's a girl, so let's go after that. Or that person sounds like a kid, so let's go after that. They're really looking to go after anyone mostly. They're really looking to just piss people off, but they're going to look for the lowest hanging fruit. And you'll find some of that just like you do in Overwatch or League or any other competitive games voice chat. Okay. Okay. Investing in stocks sounds so troublesome. Need to do too much research, boo. So your best bet then is to go. You should still do enough research on how investing works, but index fund investing is going to be broad market coverage and is going to be generally safer. Index fund investing has outperformed individual stock investing basically since index fund investing has been around, and it gives you broader coverage. It doesn't work so well as we've hit so much monopoly power in terms of your index fund investing, but you're still oversampling Amazon, Apple, Tesla, things like that because they are such large companies and therefore the index over samples them, and that's perhaps not great. It is good for exposure to the upside, but it carries a little more risk than you might like. It's not necessarily as indexed as you might think, but that would be the, hey, if you want to keep your research to a minimum, that good returns, as well as going to be, you don't need to go, okay, I really understand AT&T before I buy AT&T stock. I really understand this energy company before I buy their energy company stock. I really understand, let's move to a different thing, Nintendo before I buy their stock, that sort of thing. Like, oh, it's not just as simple as Nintendo makes good games, I like them. Well, what's currently the debt on their balance sheet? What are they currently doing in terms of payouts, that sort of thing. Index fund investing is quite a bit simpler and is better that you get into something safe, not into individual stocks, earlier as opposed to going, I'm going to spend, I'll figure that out next month, and then you don't actually get to it and you put it off for 5 years type thing. Maybe all the looking for e-girl GFs, looking for groups are onto something. Oh, okay, okay. Are you suggesting that's the shared hobby, Mercedes? That's the place, that's the thing? Again, I recommend the physical world, but okay. Tempest Best Girls. Thank you, Congex. Thank you. Oh, nine for out of 10 for dating apps. Rip for sure. Uh, I'm not woman trolled. Oh, sorry, Banana Split. Okay. Friend zone, 100% waste of time. Don't become a stalker. Agreed. And things like becoming a stalker is going to happen to people who tried to play a slow game and wanted to always be able to fall back on flank friends and didn't want to move too fast. And then they feel like they have so much sunk cost that they have to. Like, obviously, there's other people that become stalkers, but like the danger of someone becoming a stalker, being labeled as one, goes up if you aren't direct in what you want. If you're direct in what you want, and especially early, well, if it doesn't work, you're out of each other's lives and you're mostly safe. Now, that's different if you've slept together and there's the potential for a child involved, but usually you're not going to get totally destroyed legally, financially, if you didn't get together and you quickly made it clear that what you were after was getting together either physically or in a relationship. Uh-huh. I know Congex, it's sad, the education area, but hey. Yeah, Garrett, that's an interesting one, but it is what we ended up to. Education have moved from, say, math to language for decades now. They have, and that's not terribly good when you look at what the labor market rewards as well. Like, no, your social sciences degree is not terribly rewarded in the labor market. The harder STEM degrees are rewarded better. They're not rewarded quite as well as we perhaps suggest to people that they are. Like, STEM just prints money. It can sometimes for some people. It's certainly better than liberal arts when it comes to your employability, but that's in part, a lot of that is going to be because A, it's hard and people don't want to do it, but we also had our universities vastly build out those systems in part to go, hey, let's attract more people that'll do stuff that's easier than STEM, that sort of thing. But anyway, different concept. Uh-huh. Adam says that's not the job of the education system. That's why good countries emphasize strong families. Men need role models. Without them, they can be very destructive. I think I covered that, Adam, but I hear what you're saying in terms of it is, single parent single parent homes plus the education system. I covered both of those things as factors. And I am not saying that it is impossible to raise children well in a single parent household. It can absolutely be done, but families do have to figure out what they're missing in order to do that. And it does very much help to get the community involved in those situations to make sure that, oh, if you're being raised by a single mother, for example, do you have maybe a man in their 30s come be the babysitter sometime? Do you make sure that there's a baseball coach that they spend some time with? Like, there's things that can be done, or vice versa, that can help there. So the most Zoom temporal I've ever seen. Hey, blah. High school felt like such a waste of time. Education is so bad quality until you get to uni. Uni has some things it does better. Uni has some things it does better. I'll definitely grant you that. But with what it costs and with what most people do with it, I don't know. I mean, if it was actually about, hey, let's build decent, good human beings being educated for the sake of educated, I could live with that too, but we probably wouldn't send as many people to it, and we don't really even do a good job of that anymore. There's a lot of intolerance of other ideas at universities right now. There's a lot of the professors want us like ask students to, hey, I want you to argue the affirmative and you to argue the negative. Uh, for example, I did criminal justice, and I had a project where I was asked to take the stance specifically of, okay, make the argument for this debate. This is your assignment. Make the argument that the police should be able to use someone's status as a illegal immigrant, as someone who's not, allowed to be here, to threaten to, to use that. Like, what is a benefit of them being able to do that? And I took that project and I debated that and I correctly brought up the points. And the professor could absolutely see that I argued it well and he was aware that I argued it well, but he'd also given control of our grades to other students. He did one quarter himself and 3/4 for 3 other students that graded you. And you could tell the other students were horrified, not because my arguments were bad, but because they hated the position that I'd been assigned. And that was an example that happened when I was in college. And I've been out of college for a while. It's only gotten worse. Yep. Yep. And again, that's the sort of thing where it's like we have to be able to tolerate other ideas to sharpen our own, especially when people are being assigned positions. And you'll have students now who will say, professor, like we or don't do this, or we're not willing to do this, or please assign us the position so that it's clear we've been assigned it so that we can argue it, even when it's a position they want to argue. Right, but the students doing the grading there was a mistake on the professor's part, circling dance, but it does show that, like, okay, college students are not currently in a place where they are, how shall I say, terribly effective or terribly accepting of, oh, well, they aren't in a place where they can understand that this is an idea that has to, that's been assigned, that is being argued. It's the, no, we hate that idea, so you're wrong for not just surrendering. Like, oh, that's not a good place to sharpen ideas, which was sort of the original idea of college. You can either have the view that college is a place that you go to become a more complete human being, which is sort of what it was originally for, or you can have the idea that college is more to get work skills, and it's not doing a very good job of either of those things right now, at least in the United States. And so I will make exceptions to that. Like, for example, obviously I coach at a university, and how can I say these terrible things about college? Well, I can say these things about colleges in general without talking about my specific one. My specific one and the players on my team are heavily, heavily in STEM fields. They're at one of the top STEM places in the country, and they also get a ton of paid work experience. They do paid internships almost every other semester, paid internships, and those very regularly lead to jobs. So I can say this about college in general without flushing down the toilet the place that I do some work for. Uni is meant to expand your critical thinking. I'm okay with that argument. You can have one of the two arguments, Zergling Dance. I would argue a lot of people go to uni for the other argument of, hey, you need to be able to get a job. But if you want to go with the classical, it's supposed to be good for your critical thinking, you're not doing critical thinking if you can't evaluate arguments. If you can't be like, hey, I'm evaluating the arguments, and you're just like, no, that view is bad, bad, bad. Like, it's clearly not working. Okay. Not saying you as the person temporal, but you as the reader. Yeah, that was what I responded to that earlier. That's fine. I learned a lot in high school. I learned a fair amount in high school and even junior high as well, blah, but I went to a pretty advanced high school. Yeah. A lot of early college with repeats. I hate that with every statement you make, there needs to be a 2-minute disclaimer so nobody brings up a fringe case and argues with you. Modern world is so scared of definitive statements. That's because there's a lot of liability in the modern world. We are very litigious. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. TAs basically do everything. Yep. Kogic said I had exactly the same experience with debate stuff. Yep. Scott says preach it. Thank you, Scott Free. The whole class laughed when I had to agree with the other sides. The whole class laughed when I had to agree with the other sides when I was just assigned to have the wrong side appointed to me. Weird stuff, right? Zergling says, I did STEM too. That might be why my view is rosary for it. Are you in Australia? I might be mixing up who you are in the Discord Zergling Dance, but I think you're in Australia, and I think Australia has actually done a pretty good job of moving around how much they're willing to accept for STEM students versus liberal arts students. I think they've pretty hard steered towards STEM with their funding for all but their most prestigious universities. And that would be something that I applaud, quite frankly. Yes, you're Australian. Yeah. Good on you guys. You're in Australia. Okay. Okay. Studying law mostly gave me framework and counterintuitive data. Okay. Okay. University is an investment and you need to know how to make a return on it. I think that's how most people view it now. I wish actually they viewed it more as an investment than they do. I think if they viewed it more as an investment and they understood a little bit more about finance, there'd probably be less people doing it for worthless degrees. But that's life. Again, there's really two different views on it, and I'd say most students are viewing this is a requirement to get jobs, but they're not getting the right degrees to get good jobs. And then there are the ones who are going, there's a few, and there's the university's view of, no, you're doing this to build yourself as a respectable citizen, person. You should be educated. You should be educated because it's good for the soul, that sort of thing. It's good for critical thinking, as was put there. We don't really teach critical thinking anymore. We've given up on teaching critical thinking. It's very sad, but we gave up on teaching critical thinking a long time ago because we basically discovered that we were really bad at doing it. Colleges were still supposed to do it, but even that's fallen off. Social science is useful when done right, but doing it right is hard. Doing it right is hard, and we've allowed way too many people. Well, not we've allowed, like not like you're forbidden from going into it, but we've handed out too many degrees for it when there aren't enough jobs in it, is what I would say there. Like, it's okay, but it's again a supply and demand curve, and you don't want people going $100,000 in debt when there's 100 people fighting them for that one job that'll use their degree versus in the STEM field where there's 15 people fighting them for the one job that is fighting for the one job that they can realistically use their degree for. Like, that's the issue that you run into. Social sciences are absolutely legit when they are practiced correctly. There's some things that have infected them that have not been great. They were a little softer and weaker to that infection than some of the harder sciences, but even the harder sciences are seeing some falls to that as well. So we're like, no, the scientific method is evil and you can't use that, and no, disciplines cannot criticize each other, but whatever. That's again a thing that happens when something goes through a university like that, and The people who are doing work aren't really paying attention until it's too late because they're busy doing their good work. This has been very informative. Thanks for doing this. No problem. No problem. Yeah, we're wrapping up here. I like these type of topics. I should probably do these as smaller videos, different topics, but I do like chatting with you guys about these topics, which makes these videos long. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and giving up on critical thinking. GG. That's what Americans need more of. No offense. None taken, man. That's a clean shot that you can have. Like, I don't know what country you're from, but that is a clean hit on America that I'm just like, yep, you got us. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed. We'll do more of these, but part of what's going to inspire more of these is going to be more questions and Ask Temporal that are related to things that aren't Overwatch. I totally enjoy doing Overwatch content, don't get me wrong, but I do want to branch out. I do want to do more stuff like this. I like doing stuff like this. I think this stuff is longer term helpful for people. So join the Discord. In the Discord, throw stuff in, Ask Temporal, probably in the freebie section. If you throw it in the paid section, I'm going to message you and we're going to have to work out rates, but I can do that. And obviously, all this Ask Temporal stuff is not me giving you financial advice. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not your doctor. I do not have any agency agreement with you. There is no agency between us in terms of any of that. But this is what some guy on the internet thinks. Yeah. Anyway, join the Discord, throw up more stuff in Ask Temporal. It's fun to do this sort of stuff. Would like to do it more often. If you're enjoying the content, drop a like, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.